Okay, I started at the age of 18 in 1952, right after graduating from York High School. And jobs were at a premium for people that were not going on to college or were not 1A in the draft status. So I was able to land a job there in the water department, and after working there 3 or 4 months, there was a big controversy about whether they were going to hire a city manager or not to run the city. And I was looking at the different departments in the city, and I see the electrical department had the original city electrician who had been there like 42 years, since 1925. And I thought, well, that might be an opportunity for me. So I talked to him about it, and I said, you know, I think you need a younger guy. And being only that age, you know, you don't really discriminate against older people or whatever. You just say, here's an opportunity for me and I'd like to try it. And I was learning that job pretty well, and I thought, you know, I think this is going to work out. Of course, at the time, I don't know if I was going to survive or not. I was the lowest paid guy in the city, $1.25 an hour, 44 hours a week, and yeah, I hope I make this, you know. But then it was right after the Korean War, and there seemed to be a big scare since that ended up in more or less a draw, and possibly we might be going to war with Russia or whatever. So we should have awareness of some type of civil defense. So they started the Elmhurst Civil Defense. I think it was called the Commissioner. Jim Sikora was the guy in charge of it. And so we started to make some plans as to what we were going to do. And the federal government had issued like a charge card for war surplus material down in Springfield. And they said, well, if you need anything to promote civil defense in Elmhurst, let us know what it is, and if we have it, you can probably get it. Well, in early 1955, the contractor that put the basement in York High School finished the job. And so the Civil Defense Commission said that would probably be a good place to store supplies and also equip a hospital there if something happened to the one we had. So we went over and looked at it, and we thought, yeah, that's great. You know, we'll see what we can do with that. And I think the doctor's name was Max Klinghoffer, who was in charge of the hospital, and he agreed. So they talked to the city council about it, and they said, yes, I think we can do that. So we talked to the federal government about getting a generator for it. And they said fine, plus the supplies we would need. So we got a deuce-and-a-half Army surplus truck and went down to Springfield, picked up this huge generator, brought it back to York High School, and set it in one of those window wells there. So we designed the system based on what the doctor told us and what requirements might be. And eventually it turned into a full-scale operation. We actually made up lights for it. We made up different segregated rooms like emergency, triage, whatever. And actually set it up and had a drill with the nurses and doctors from the hospital, and we set it up, fired up the generator, and it worked real well. So then we just took that down and stored it. So that was one of the things we did. And of course, being workers for the city, we had classes at the fire station on what we should do when something happens, cleaning up rubble, radiation, what to look for, and that kind of thing. When we went to Springfield, they had a lot of monitors, and so we picked up a lot of those. Those were issued to the fire department, police department, public works, of course, and came up with a plan with that. And we also had an emergency communications center down there, so we were actually in pretty good shape. And then a little later on, we were talking about that reservoir, which was no longer being used on Scott Street. And we thought, well, that might be a good place if something happened to the city hall for the city government and the communications center to work out of. So we cut a hole in the side of the reservoir and built this stairway and some temporary things down there. And unfortunately, I wasn't around for the finish of that, because I decided, you know, I might as well get this military service out of the way. So I enlisted in the Army, and, you know, within about 6 months I was gone. But in the meantime, we also came across this plan of installing sirens throughout the city, mainly at the schools, to warn people of a possible air raid if there was one. And so as the electrical division, we did the whole installation. We put up the poles, put up the sirens, and the whole shot. So we had that going for us. And we also attended some of the programs that told us, for example, what the school kids were supposed to do. And at the time, if the sirens went off, they were supposed to dive under their desks. You know, I don't know if you recall that or not, but that's what happened then. So we were constantly having these meetings, and brought us up to date on what was happening as far as the Cold War was concerned. But